Hey everybody, Rosie here. Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Someone say yay or nay. I'm not continuing. Can you hear me? Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mary. Cool. All right. Let's get rid of some stuff on the screen. Hey guys, I'm so excited to be here with you tonight, but I'm so sorry I did not take into consideration the time change. And if you're like me, I'm like sitting here with my coffee because, whoa, I am falling asleep. But anyway, tonight's video picks up where the Let's Talk Terry video ended. I'll make it through as much as I can today. And I promise that if we don't make it through all of it, we will get together again tomorrow or the next day a little bit earlier. Loud and clear. Thanks, Ed. So good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time, Ed. Good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining me. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. I know it's a little bit late, but it is what it is. So, if you did not catch my Let's Talk Terry, it's a very fundamental summary of Maury Terry and how he entered the case. Very brief. It's about a 10-minute video. If you didn't catch it, don't worry. I will put the link in the description and you could watch it another time. So, we left off going through Maury Terry's bylines. So, today's episode will cover excerpts from those bylines. But before we get started, oh, and for those of you who haven't been on live with me, like Ed, you haven't seen me in a while. I'm kind of a hot mess when I'm doing this, so just be cool, and we're going to get through as much as we can. So let's jump screens here. Hang on. Hey, I got that to play. All right. Yep. All right. I'm going to share another screen with you, and we're going to start tonight's presentation. So here we go. Okay. I think we're good with that. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger for you. Hey, Patrick, Steve, Ed, Mary, book club. Hey. All right. So before I begin, like I said, we're picking up with the bylines. Before I do that, we're going to listen. And for those of you that don't know, this is the Maury Terry portion of the Son of Sam timeline. We're going to go to the reporter dispatch. Okay. And we're just going to take a quick listen. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. All right. We're going to take a quick listen to this rather than me just mulling it off. So hang on. In 1979, journalist Maury Terry published a series of investigative articles for Gannett newspapers in Westchester, challenging the official finding of a lone gunman in the Son of Sam case. This led to the reopening of the case in 1979 by John Santucci, the Queens District Attorney. Let's chronicle Maury's early investigation using these articles from the Reporter Dispatch. Before we begin, let's consider a few things. The lawsuits which were going on. The Mittiger case. Remember that on October 26, 1978, Maury Terry accompanied Felix Gilroy to the deposition at Marcy. Maury suspected John Carr's involvement shortly after the arrest, but the Westchester Rockland newspapers were not willing to take on the liability of implicating the Carrs in the early stages of Maury's investigation, specifically in 77 and 78. These archives are in chronological order and will flow you through the early investigation of Maury Terry. All right, I'm back. Let's hit back on that reporter dispatch. Let me share that screen. Cool. All right. I am not going to just read through all of these archives, but like that little video from the timeline shared with you, I think that the bylines give a good flavor of Maury Terry's early investigation. So I'm not claiming that everything reported is truth, but again, it helps you timeline everything. So let's move down. The video mentions the lawsuits, and we will go through those in great detail on another video. I've already shared some information on the lawsuit, on the Moskowitz lawsuit, but I think that we will need to revisit that. I think it's very important in terms of Maury Terry's early investigation. How many people in the chat are familiar with Lipsig, with Attorney Lipsig? If you're not familiar, then I definitely think that that's something that we need to go through. I don't think we'll make it through tonight. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started on some of these bylines. If you have any questions, I'm not going to be able to type into the chat because I'm already in like three different in three different screens, but I will address you verbally. Okay. Steve, you've heard of Lipsig? Or you're answering Ed, probably. All right, cool. Let's see. All right. Reporter Dispatch, February 25th, 1979. Okay. So in 79 is when the initial rings a bell, but that's it. Okay. I'll share something with you, Patrick. It's very important. It's very, very important. Okay. And maybe we'll cover just a tiny bit of it tonight. It depends on how far we get with the bylines. I don't want it to be too boring, but sometimes just reading is like, yeah. If you don't know about the lawsuits, if you don't know about Lipsig, if you don't know about Gilroy, you need to look those things up, and I will share information. So just to kind of give you a taste of this. So starting February 79, Maury Terry and Tom Bartley wrote a series of articles. And the first few articles are really hammering in terms of supporting the lawsuits, in my opinion. I'm going to read you some highlights. And then after this, or when we conclude with the bylines, I will make these available to those who would like them. So, February 25th, 1979, how Berkowitz could have been jailed sooner. David Berkowitz could have been jailed on a number of serious charges that would have taken him off the streets 2 months and 4 victims before his capture in August 1977 as the Son of Sam killer. By mid-June 1977, the Yonkers Police Department had a resident's complaints that Berkowitz might well have committed those local crimes. And unknown to the Yonkers police, the Westchester Sheriff's Office had by that time a key letter linking Berkowitz to the crimes. Okay, so we're talking about Carr's complaints to the Yonkers police, and we're talking about Glassman's complaint to the Westchester Sheriff's Office. Continuing. Moreover, 2 Yonkers policemen investigating an independent theory believed that Berkowitz was not only some neighborhood nuisance, but might be the Son of Sam as well. Such Chamberlain and Intervallo. New information shows that not only private citizens, but Berkowitz himself provided the Yonkers Police Department and Westchester Sheriff's Office with all the leads they would have needed to arrest him by at least mid-June 1977, nearly 2 weeks before the shootings of Judy Placido and Salvatore Lupo, and almost 2 months before the murder of Stacy Moskowitz and blinding of Robert Violante. Indeed, the evidence suggests that Berkowitz was at the very least taunting local police and perhaps even fashioning a deliberate trail of obvious clues. In any event, in obvious clues. In any event, the trail was not followed until it was too late. Okay, so let's just chat for a minute before I continue. I'm gonna shut that down for a second. Okay, so why is this important? So the Moskowitz family put in a lawsuit to the city of Yonkers because with all this, and this was immediately after the arrest. This was not in 79. Okay, this was immediately after the arrest. The Moskowitz's lawyer filed paperwork for a suit against Yonkers. And then Violante did as well. And for those who don't know who attorney Harry Lipsig is, he represented Violante and then later Sal Lupo. So, and again, I'm going to share more about Lipsig because that's pretty interesting. Lipsig is an attorney that doesn't really come into the scene until a little bit later. However, Maury meets him early in his career, like shortly after the arrest of Berkowitz. Lipstick and Maury are get acquainted. Okay, so I'm just trying to let me check. I'm going to stay for a second and just check the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything on that. Oh yeah, I remember that lawsuit. Yeah, these lawsuits were important because they're the reason in some of these bylines and just in other research that you might have seen. Let me put that up there, Patrick. In some of the research you might have seen, it's the reason Yonkers was told not to talk because these big lawsuits were hanging over their head. I mean, they were eventually thrown out by the judge, but then the lawsuits moved and they were filing litigation against Berkowitz's estate later. But initially, it was against the city of Yonkers. Okay, so if we don't have any questions in chat, I am going to continue. Let me jump this back on. Again, I'm not reading everything because that would just, we'd be here all night and that would get kind of boring. But this is very important. Okay. Here's an excerpt from that same article. A Gannett Westchester Rockland newspaper's investigation has found that if all the evidence had been put together, it could have led to Berkowitz's arrest as a suspect in a host of state and federal crimes, including arson, attempted murder, reckless endangerment, and threatening lives through the mail. Attempts to document the bizarre crimes of Berkowitz in Westchester were rebuffed in Yonkers by the police and the city's corporation council, who said they could not comment officially or allow inspection of records while lawsuits challenging the city's handling of the case were pending in the courts. The Westchester Sheriff's Office agreed to interviews but refused access to official records, including critical ones requested under the state's Freedom of Information law. So that's what was going down with that. So another interesting part of these bylines, so remember, these first few that came out with Terry and Tom Bartley are hitting home. They're driving the fuel and the fire on these lawsuits. So nobody's talking about any kind of cult or anything like that at this point. All right, key figures in Berkowitz's drama. This is a cast of key Westchester residents in the guerrilla war of firebombings, dog shootings, and threatening letters and telephone calls carried out by David Berkowitz in the 15 months before his arrest in Yonkers as the son of Sam. Okay, we all going to know these names, but I'm just going to give it as a little bit of a review. Sam Carr, a retired City of Yonkers public works employee who, with his wife Frances, operate an answering service from their home. The Carrs were subjected to a firebombing and threatening letters, which he turned over with a postcard sent to a New Rochelle resident he believed written by the same hand to Yonkers police. Their dog, Harvey, was shot twice and still carries one slug in his body. Sam Carr became the unwilling father of Son of Sam. Wheat Carr, their daughter, who as a civilian dispatcher in the Yonkers Police Department at the time, took a key telephone call from the New York City Son of Sam Task Force about a traffic ticket issued to David Berkowitz in Brooklyn and told the New York officers of an investigation by two Yonkers officers of Berkowitz, possibly involvement in the series of bizarre local incidents. Jack Cassara and his wife Nan, who received a puzzling get-well card at their New Rochelle home signed by the Carrs and listed their address. They contacted the Carrs. Stephen Cassara, their son, who remembered after the Cassara family met with the Carrs that the Cassaras had a dog-hating tenant who moved out in a huff over the Cassara dogs. They found his name, David Berkowitz, and his address, 35 Pine Street, in the telephone book. They notified Sam Carr. Joaquim Neto, his wife Maria, their daughter Sylvia, and Mrs. Neto's mother, Andrea Almeida, the first victims. Their house was firebombed, their dog Rocket shot to death, their telephone calls and mail containing filth and threats. Craig Glassman, a male nurse and civilian volunteer member of the Westchester Sheriff's Emergency Force, who lived in the apartment beneath Berkowitz and triggered Berkowitz's wrath by falling asleep one night and leaving his television set on. The letter threatening his life became vital evidence. And then Thomas Chamberlain and Peter Intervallo, the Yonkers police officers who saw a pattern to the firebombings, dog shootings, and hate letters. They saw in Berkowitz the possibility of a Son of Sam suspect and relayed that information to New York City authorities on August 5th, 5 days before Wheat Carr received the call that turned Berkowitz into a suspect instead of a possible witness to the killing of Stacy Moskowitz in Brooklyn. So again, these articles came out in 79. By this time, they were all going after Berkowitz's estate, and that's going to be important too, as we move on with Maury's early investigation and the timeline. All right, I'm going to stop just for a moment and check the chat. 79 was very interesting year in SOS case. Yeah, it was. That's when the bylines came out. Oh, yeah. I remember that lawsuit. Oh my goodness, was I just yipping and yammering through that whole time? Okay, sorry. I don't know what you heard and what you didn't hear, but I started talking at the, let's see, we were just going through the chat a little bit. Can you all hear me now? I'm so sorry. I think I'm back. I see my bubble moving, so I'm assuming that you can all hear me now. I will repeat what I said. Sorry. All right. So, yes, Steve, they held the files because of all the litigation going on. They were advised by their, corporate counsel that that's what they had to do. 79 was very interesting because that's when these bylines started coming out. But I'll tell you, as right after the arrest, Maury started his independent investigation. He just, started getting the go ahead. You know what I'm saying? He started going the go ahead, getting the go ahead, and started doing his bylines then. Let's see. Harvey was hit once. He still had a bullet in him. Let's see. Herbal tea, what's up? And then I think I started rambling on this one where you guys, I was, it's nothing wrong with the stream. I was on mute talking to myself. Okay. Is Berkowitz's estate assets listed anywhere? So upon his arrest, you got booted? Patrick, I didn't boot you, dear. Anyway, upon his arrest, he had no assets. He had his car, he had the shit in his apartment. He didn't have any assets. What you have to take into consideration is that when he was arrested as the son of Sam, okay, you had your books coming out. I mean, Carposi came out like 5 weeks after the arrest. He got his advance before the son of Sam was even arrested, before Berkowitz was arrested for the crimes. Okay. So you had these book deals happening. You had the media frenzy going on. This was hot topic. The people saw dollar signs. There was a movie deal in the works, and they were expecting to get like $20 million from this movie deal that eventually fell through. And that is something key to remember. Okay. And we're going to come back to that. We have to go through those lawsuits again. Because when I went through the Nasa Moskowitz, I did a lot of research on Nasa Moskowitz. I don't know, I can't remember how much I actually focused on the lawsuit, but I think we need to do a very, very detailed dive into those lawsuits. I've already done the dive. Well, I need to share it with you, basically. Okay. Mary's laughing at me. Okay, you can hear me. Am I talking too loud? Is that why you're laughing at me? Poor Patrick got booted. I didn't do it, dear. Yeah, probably your crappy connection. That's a big maybe. All right, we're going to continue. If nobody has any questions, I think that most of you are very familiar with this information. I just think that it's really important to do recaps, and that's kind of what this is. So, Maury got hot on this case from the jump, okay? From the jump. He saw the letters, he saw the John Wheaties, or that's, what he has claimed. He saw the John Wheaties, and immediately it never smelled right to him, in his words. So he was on this case from the jump. However, the bylines is what really started fueling different theories. So I'm going to jump back now on the other screen. I'll try not to mute myself. And again, we're going to just read excerpts. I want to keep this interesting. All right. So on February 26th, this is just a day later, they're back on, Terry and Bartley. And if you don't know who Bartley is, I could show you something in a bit, but let me just keep rolling. Okay, so this looks like a repeat. I won't read this, but I'll just give you like the opening salvo. Much of the criticism and lawsuits aimed at the city of Yonkers over its handling of the David Berkowitz case have maintained the city should have known he was son of Sam and arrested him as the .44 caliber killer, a dubious assertion the courts have rejected twice in dismissing those suits. I mean, it's a would've, could've, should've, right? I mean, in theory, now that we have all this information, sure. In my opinion, Maury was interested because he was from Yonkers and did know the cars. Yeah, well, interesting. It didn't come up right away that he knew John Carr, and most of us know that John Carr was in his homeroom at Sacred Heart, right? But initially, it didn't seem like Maury remembered that. But his friend, I believe, was it Charles, that said in the Sons of Sam doc that that he reminded Maury about John Carr being in the homeroom. So, and then we have that story that we told. I don't know if it's true or not, but in her words, Maury was tossed from their house or something like that. Patrick, I was gonna say the something that say the same thing book club. Maury and John went to school together, I think. No, they did. I don't think it was very long. I think it was one semester, but he was in his homeroom at Sacred Heart. Okay. I'm going to make it through some of this because I think it's pretty interesting. I'm going to skip the first part of the next byline, but then the second part is Berkowitz. I went to kill the Carr family. So let me just go down on the timeline. I know you can't read this. If you missed the beginning of this stream, after I have concluded with the bylines, I don't know if I'm going to do that today. I'm definitely not going to make through all of it. This is a huge link, and I don't even know how long we've been going so far, maybe about a half hour. I'm going to get through what I can, and then I'm going to come back on this week, and we'll get through the rest. We'll answer any questions that may come up. But I will make them available when my series on the bylines concludes. I will make it available. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. Book club. As Maury continued with these articles, he saw dollar signs. These articles are the basis for the ultimate evil. Yeah. Well, we're gonna learn a lot just reviewing these bylines. So, okay. Let's continue. Where's my glasses? Uh-oh. Okay, here they are. Again, Berkowitz. I went to kill the Carr family. There had been no 44 caliber killings, let alone a son of Sam, when Berkowitz opened the war against his Yonkers neighbors in the black stillness of the morning of May 13, 1976. Berkowitz was new to the neighborhood, a compact collection of modest single-family homes and high-rise apartment buildings coexisting between the busy north-south arteries of Warburton Avenue and Broadway in northwest Yonkers. Berkowitz had settled himself into a top-floor studio apartment at 35 Pine in April after stalking out of his rented room in New Rochelle after an emotional outburst over the barking of his landlord's dog. So we know that. We know that. Let's skip ahead just a little bit. Okay. Far below was a scene that would prove even more dramatic to Berkowitz. Sam Carr's backyard on Warburton Avenue, and next to it, a spit of a street called Wicker. The Netto family and their German shepherd, Rocket, lived at 18 Wicker Street, some 100 yards from Berkowitz's new home in a 3-story frame house. Shortly after 3:30, covered by the darkness of the May morning, Berkowitz slammed a firebomb only inches from the bedroom window behind which the Netto's 12-year-old daughter had been sleeping. Flames burned the front of the house and porch, causing an estimated $1,000 in damage. It burned. It burned. We all thought we were going to die, says Andrea Almeida, mother of Mrs. Maria Netto, recalling in her native Spanish the night that flames illuminated their tiny neighborhood and plunged the family into 6-month siege by a terrorist. Then came the letters, dirty letters that threatened the family, says Mrs. Almeida. We destroyed them. A series of obscene and abusive phone calls followed, says Mrs. Netto, and then a false alarm to the Yonkers police telling them that dead bodies were to be found at 18 Wicker Street. So they're referring to the SWAT incident there. The cops came banging on the door at about 1 in the morning, says Maria Netto. We didn't know what had happened. There were no bodies, of course. Berkowitz said after his arrest that he called the Yonkers police anonymously to tell them that Joachim is tormenting me, most likely a reference to Joachim Neto. Finally, on Christmas Eve, 1976, Berkowitz left his job with an Elmsford construction company, stopped at a coworker's home in North Yonkers for a couple of holiday drinks. We know who that is. And finishing the evening, shot Rocket to death on the front porch of the Neto home. As Berkowitz fired his small caliber rifle into the front wall of the house, the Neto's 12-year-old was once again behind the wall, this time playing a piano with her cousin in the living room. One shot missed the living room window by about a foot. All right, I'm going to just take a stop here. Let's see what people are saying. The amount of money the SOS case made was crazy. Patrick, you are going to want to watch our Follow the Money. After I do the Maury stuff, I'm jumping back into Follow the Money, which I've been promising. I'm sorry, my time is very limited. So the Phantom of the Bronx could start a building on fire. You know, Patrick, we all feel differently about that. I mean, in my opinion, there's no way, that was all propaganda. I don't doubt for a second that Berkowitz set some fires, but you know, the whole hoopla, I don't buy it. I mean, the Bronx was burning at that time. There were a tremendous amount of arsons, but they weren't all Berkowitz. And those logs are so shady. All right. Although the shooting of Rocket was the last Berkowitz attack on the Netos, they remained in terror until his arrest 8 months later. This man kept us in fear for more than a year's time, says Mrs. Neto. All right, I'm going to skip over that. I think we're all familiar with. There's been a lot of research done on the Netos. What else in these bylines are interesting? Carr, who was then 63 and retired from the Yonkers Public Works Department, operated an answering service out of his rambling home at 316 Warburton Avenue. He lived there with his wife, Frances. That sounds repeat from the other article. Carr's first name, linking it. Okay, here. Berkowitz would also appropriate Carr's first name, linking it to the Son of Sam killings and propelling this essentially private person into glare of public attention he neither asked for nor desired. The Carr family refused to be interviewed for these articles. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to. We could talk a minute or so. I'm sure there's something on Glassman here. I know there's a lot of interest in Glassman. Here, let's jump down here a little later in the timeline with the Carrs. By the time Carr next heard from Berkowitz by an anonymous letter postmarked April 10th, 1977, three young women had been murdered with that 44 caliber bulldog, and four other persons had been wounded. So you see how how Bartlett and Maury are so they're so like riling up this whole lawsuit thing. They're really flaming the fire, if you will. Okay. Here, this is what I was looking at. In the course of a 4-hour interview late last year, at which one of these writers was present, Berkowitz described that April morning and what he said was true target. Now, I believe, in my opinion, this he's talking about the Gilroy, because he's saying late last year. And for those of you that don't know, Felix Gilroy represented Mittiger, and I'm not going to get into that today. If you don't know who those people are, write it in comments or chat, and I will share some stuff on my wall. I already have shared stuff on my wall, but I can reshare or in group. But I think that's what he's talking about here. So Berkowitz described that April morning, and what he said was true to target. I went to kill the Carrs. Berkowitz described the cars as my enemies. He said, I hated them. I wanted them dead, but they were inside the house, so I shot the dog instead. Berkowitz said in the interview that he had loaded a 30-round clip into his 45 caliber semi-automatic rifle, a weapon purchased in Brooklyn's sporting goods store. At 9:30 in the morning, Berkowitz said he toted his rifle along the aqueduct behind Sam Carr's house with the intention of slaughtering the Carr family. So, yeah, we can. Yeah, I'll read this one for Patrick since he had a question. Harvey today still carries a 45 slug in his body, and police sources still say they cannot determine the caliber. All right, let's see. What do we have here? Okay. So Mary agrees is that he didn't do all those fires. I mean, how could he do all those fires? Okay, Patrick. So do you think they planted the logs? You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I've only seen the few copies that were in Klausner's book. So I don't know. Police say they found fire logs, but, were those just, alarm rings? Was Berkowitz testing the police and fire? I don't know. So I don't know. Those are all I've ever seen. Now, a few people have said that they have copies of logs, and I saw a copy of like a book cover, but I don't know, Patrick. But I know you have some severe theories on the dog barking, and you did a whole analysis on on the traveling of sound. So that's interesting. We'll have to share a little bit. All right. So I'm going to move on. I don't see any other questions or comments in chat. Let's take that off. Let's move on down here. If you're just tuning in, these archives will be available when I'm done with this series. I will provide them for you. So he's still working with Bartley, okay? And just so you can't just implicate people. You have to go delicately with this. And at this time, they just didn't have the permission to go in after the Carr family. So initially, they're just pounding on these lawsuits. And now they're going to start talking about how Berkowitz spun a web around his neighbors. And again, I don't want to sit here and read all of this to you because it will get quite boring, but I'll read what I have highlighted. And then again, I'll check chat. So we know that he had he had some craziness. Imagine being his neighbor. Oh my goodness. Okay. We already saw this through a web of bizarre threatening letters Berkowitz provided in just 3 days, enough information to lead authorities to Westchester right to his apartment door. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Okay, but it took another 2 months before New York police arrested Berkowitz, in which time Stacy Moskowitz was murdered. Robert Violante was blinded. Robert Violante. So here again, they keep pushing that if they would have done their job and they would have done this and they would have done that, we could have saved lives. And is that true? Maybe. But again, coulda, woulda, shoulda. There's my Patrick. I researched decibels of a lab bark. Yeah, I can get pretty nerdy. Patrick, I hope you never get insulted, but you know that I call you my nutty buddy. All right, moving on. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, of course, they bring up the letters. Okay, more than 18 months after Berkowitz was arrested outside his Yonkers apartment house at the Son of Sam, an investigation by this newspaper has found that if information held by two West, blah, 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 blah. So they're talking about immediately after his arrest, this newspaper started their own investigation, okay? And then they talk about the first strand in the web of incriminating letters was spun by the Son of Sam himself. Silenced since April, on June 1st, the killer mailed a letter to the New York News columnist Jimmy Breslin. 4 days later, the public learned the 44 caliber killer was not only a dangerous murderer, but a man of letters as well. And then they go into the Breslin letter, and there's no reason for me to read it for you, forward or backwards or any way. You're all familiar with that. So we're going to move on. That's fine. but does make me want a candy bar. Well, when I was a kid, Nutty Buddies were ice cream cones, and they were vanilla in a sugar cone covered with nuts and chocolate. We're gonna move on because I know you all know the whole the Nan Casera's letter, the letter that was mailed allegedly from the cars, but it was Berkowitz. Okay, so here's my note, and I have notes throughout the timeline. Terry and Bartley continue to hammer home the negligence on the part of YPD narrative. And that was the purpose of those first few articles. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with Tom Bartley, I'm going to bring him up. He was an editor at Gannett Westchester newspaper. Now, this is not what he looked like in the 70s. This is what he looked like at the time of the Sons of Sam. So let me see if I could share this tab instead. Okay, this is Mr. Tom Bartley. And actually, let me just read something to you, which I find interesting. Let me see if I could go in through here. There it is. It's an excerpt from the Skeptical Inquirer. And this is newer. This is when the movie came out, May 12th, 2021, Skeptical Inquirer. And this is an excerpt. Okay. One such conspiracy theory is the subject of Netflix's latest docuseries, The Sons of Sam, A Descent into Darkness, which explores journalist Maury Terry's claims that David Berkowitz, the son of Sam killer, did not act alone in committing his crimes, but rather as a member of a devil-worshipping cult. Now, I'm reading this because Bartley was skeptical of a lot of stuff that Maury was saying, but he was asked. He was convinced he was right, said Bartley. And he's talking about Maury Terry, former editor of Gannett newspapers, speaking in remembrance of Terry. Can you prove that he wasn't? Joshua Zeman asks, director of the series. Bartley replies, no, that's my point. So although he was very skeptical of Maury's stories, he couldn't disprove him, okay? And he was acknowledged in the ultimate evil. And I'm not going to get into a whole thing on Tom Bartley right now, so I'm going to go back to the Terry stuff. Let's share this instead, and I'll close out that Tom Bartley. Okay. February 28th, 1979. Let's go back here. Berkowitz was low on the suspect list. While David Berkowitz remained at large during the final 4 Son of Sam attacks, his crimes in Yonkers were being variously ascribed to a black arsonist, a blonde rifleman, a disgruntled sheriff's employee, and only possibly to David Berkowitz. So I think you've heard a little bit about that. The Nettos said that they had heard what they thought was a black voice. Sam Carr was filing complaints about incidents that were happening around his home by the black youths. And then, of course, the blonde rifleman is the one that was seen allegedly running from the dog shooting incident. So they just keep hammering it home. I don't want to be repetitive here, but they just keep hammering home that Berkowitz could have been caught sooner. But, could he have? Maybe. Okay. Let's see. I've got another little highlighted section that I'm going to read here to you from this, and then we're going to move on. Given that crime rate could a pattern of arson and dog shooting have been discerned at the time, or is it simply hindsight and Berkowitz's admissions that the crimes tied to him? The question was put to veteran law enforcement officers outside the Yonkers and sheriff's departments. Their conclusion: the pattern was clear. or should have been. A New York City detective with 23 years on the force says, "You've got to think there's most likely a single menace loose in the neighborhood." There was the Netto arson and the dog shooting, and then the same thing happens to the car. The pattern was exactly the same, and the letters Carr got were about his dog. It makes sense to think the same person was responsible for all of it, and that he probably lived close enough to be bugged by the dog barking. You've got a narrow area to search. So, Yonkers sources disagree, saying the information given to the police indicated at least two other persons had committed those crimes, and neither was Berkowitz. So, again, it's easy to say now, with everything that we know, that they should have been able to catch Berkowitz. But they were getting discrepancies in the reports, again, possibly black youths. And for those of you who saw, I have no idea if they are still up, but Grossman and Neo did a few Netto shows, and they said that they did not know anything about the car crimes. So even though they were like right there, right across the street from each other, they didn't know. So anyhow, let's see what we got going on in chat. Take a break from reading and take a little sip of water. Sounds like the articles are trying to prove negligence. Yes, that's what I'm saying, Patrick. These first few articles, Gannett articles in the beginning of 79, they couldn't talk really. Maury already had suspicions of the others' involvement and the cars, but he didn't have the green light. So they were pushing this negligence narrative because those lawsuits were going on. So they were getting into the scene. They were getting those articles were being seen. And remember, the lawsuits hit right away. Now we're talking about lawsuits that went up on on Berkowitz's estate. Okay. So yeah, they're totally doing that. They're totally doing that. So I think that we kind of hit that home enough. And I think that we should move on. How long have we been on? An hour? Am I losing people? I still got a few people watching. I got some people chatting. Y'all are important to me. A few sniffers in the background. That's cool. You could say hello, guys, whoever you are. Let's move on. Okay. So now by March, the headline reads, "Did Berkowitz have partner in murder?" So now we've got some approval of them going on and starting to, bring up lightly that others could have been involved. Let's see. Think how much business a trial would bring the papers. Trials are paper sellers. Well, geez, I mean, I think that we needed the trial for many other reasons, just to have all the discovery displayed and those early interviews by police. They had to have taped recordings. We've never heard those. They're not available unless they to magically appear somewhere. We don't have access to those. Those would be very telling. I mean, we've seen the transcripts, the DA transcripts, which are very telling, but I would love to hear those initial arrest interrogations, and I know many other people would. So, I think the benefit of a trial, there's many, but the papers were already selling, and they kept selling. And then look, 2 years later, they're selling again. So anyway, thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate you participating. I love to chat, but here we are. So by March, the headline changes, right? We're kind of leaving the Westchester County or the Yonkers little area there, all the torment of Berkowitz's neighbors, and we're talking Berkowitz. Others can go to jail. Okay. So let's look at some highlights here. So some things to consider at this time. Gannett Westchester newspapers. Maury has full support of editor-in-chief Dave Hartley. And again, we're not gonna, well, let's I keep saying we're not going to, but we have the timeline, so let's go. So this is Dave Hartley of the Herald Statesman. And that was just some information that I found out because when I research people, I like to find out everything. I probably let's see, my little nutty buddy. I probably should have said lawsuit, not trials. Yeah, yeah. Well, Patrick, the lawsuits did bring a lot of hoopla. So there's Dave Hartley as he appeared in the doc, right? Hartley accompanies Terry on that pilgrimage to Untermeyer Park. They saw the Devil's Cave. I've got, yeah, we'll come back to this because each of these sublinks has reels and references, and it comes back to the ultimate evil, and it has all kinds of supporting documentation. But I just wanted to say that's him, okay? That's Dave Hartley, and he basically said, Maury, you have my blessings. So now let's share this back. Now the tone of the articles, the bylines change. Close that up. Close up Hartley. Okay. So, and this is George Hamilton here. For those of you not familiar with him, he's the handwriting analyst, sorry. An analysis, that movie with Jennifer Aniston, and an analyst. Handwriting analyst Charles Hamilton enters the scene, claims Berkowitz was not the author of the Breslin letter. We have a link for him that is endless, and I just don't want to go through it right now. Let's stay on topic here. We're going to go a little bit more, and then we're definitely going to have to pick up with a part two. So, did Berkowitz have partners in murder? Let's go through a little bit of this. If you're just tuning in, these archives will be made available to you when we are done with this series. Did Berkowitz have partners in murder? He is still writing with Bartley. Eventually, Bartley, turns away because it just gets too crazy for him. David Berkowitz insisted last year over his lawyer's objections on avoiding a trial by pleading guilty to all the Son of Sam attacks. He now says others could go to jail if he tells all he knows about the .44 caliber case. That Berkowitz bombshell dropped in the course of a 4-hour interview late last year, and his statement made public last week that he will no longer discuss the case, only deepen the mystery surrounding the year-long murderous march of Son of Sam through the streets of New York. Disturbing questions, some of them prompted by the new information unearthed in the course of a Gannett Westchester. Here he goes again. He's just plugging their investigation. I'll just kind of jump over that. Okay. Among the questions, the Son of Sam letter to New York News columnist Jimmy Breslin contains what Berkowitz says are references to crimes he committed in Yonkers. Yet Berkowitz refuses to discuss who wrote the letter, and an internationally prominent handwriting analyst flatly declares Berkowitz not only did not write the letter, but was intellectually incapable of it. Who wrote that letter and why? Only days before the Son of Sam arrest, 2 telephone callers, one a man identifying himself as David Berkowitz of Pine Street in Yonkers, expressed interest in a German Shepherd advertised for adoption. So now we're going to go all into the kennel stuff. I think most of you are familiar with this, but I'll give you just one excerpt in case you aren't. Let me just take a break here. Boom. Every time. Thank you for leaving comments because that's when I get a sip of water. I mean, the civil cases in 79, not the criminal trial in 77. Yeah. I have so much information. I did a deep dive on those lawsuits, and I have a lot of information, Patrick, that I'm going to be sharing, but not on this stream. We're going to cover the lawsuits separate because it's too much. It's too much. Mary, yes, DB was doing mostly surveillance. Okay. So again, we're talking about the kennel incident, right? David Berkowitz of Pine Street in Yonkers expressed interest in the German Shepherd advertised for adoption. The second caller also mentioned Pine Street in Yonkers. A day later, 2 men appeared at the Mamaroneck kennel to see the dog. A kennel employee later identified one as Berkowitz. His description of the companion matched those given by some Son of Sam victims who were the men interested in the shepherd and why. And then they talk about the 3 dead German shepherds. This is a separate incident. I did a deep dive into the kennel stories too when I was going through Berkowitz's stuff. Okay. Let's jump to another part. Berkowitz was known in Westchester to have driven a yellow Volkswagen, although he was the registered owner of a white Ford Galaxy. A year later, at the final Son of Sam killing in Brooklyn, and here we're going to the whole, and I'm going to try and get a guest on with me that will help me go through the whole Volkswagen saga. We have a lot of archives and information kind of piecing it together. And, we won't spend a whole show on it, but we could just do a little summary. Some witnesses to the Brooklyn attack insist the killer ran north to getaway car, a yellow one. Da 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 da. We're not really getting into that, but you see how what's happening now is we're slipping into the Moskowitz stuff, right? And we know. Do you think the writing expert was legit? Oh, Steve, let me tell you, this guy, not that I don't think he was legit, because he was known for some legit work, but he was shady as anything, because he was buying letters from Berkowitz's girlfriends that were writing him in prison. He bought some stuff from D Channel, so it was about dollar signs for him too. So I hope that answers your question. When we do a dive into Hamilton, we could talk a little bit more about that. I don't know that many people are interested in Hamilton, but hey, if you are, let me know. I'll go over anything you guys are into. Yep, familiar with kennel stuff, but love the refresh. Yep. That was a big thing. And now he's going. So see how the bylines are sliding? They're sliding into the Moskowitz with the yellow VW. Two people visited Mamaroneck kennel. And let me tell you something. I will tell you this. Maury was in that area, like at every kennel, interviewing people. Okay. So anything that happened to any dog, especially German Shepherds, Maury had a log of it. Okay. So I think I'm going to go on to one more, and then we will probably break for tonight unless there's some questions in chat. And finally, we're down to by July 19th, 79, the headline is reading, "Did Berkowitz really kill Stacy Moskowitz?" So here's where you're looking at the others really coming in. What's this? Back. I lost everything for a while. Hey, Ed. Well, you're going to have to be on the replay, but stay on for now because we're just jumping around. A lot of the stuff we're doing is just reviews, so it's all good. It's all good. All right. Let's see. Here is key. Because by the July series of bylines, Bartley's gone bye-bye, and Terry's hooked up with Jim Mittiger. If you're not familiar with Jim Mittiger, he was the one who allegedly was friends with the guard in Kings County, right? And what does that say, Manson? Oh, Manson too. Let's throw that on there. All right, I'm going to try not to look at the chat so I don't get too distracted from my thoughts. But which I just did. Oh, Mittiger. Yes. Okay, so those famous pictures, Sam sleeps. He was friends with the guard in Kings County, right? Berkowitz was sharing some information, and Mittiger got in a lot of trouble. I mean, eventually the judge, he was arrested, of course, and Mittiger is on the cast of characters, but that's just a quickie, okay? That's just a quickie. He's the one from Son of Sam Sleeps. Okay. Oh, we got a little bit more. Let's see what's going on. The way I understood it was the VW was a community car. They left the keys in it, and a few people drove it. Yeah. That's the that's the version a lot of people know, Ed. And a lot of work has been done on the yellow VW. I have a lot of backup, and when we really cover that, I think it's on this link, so it may actually happen on the next live stream. But But yeah, that's the story that just about everybody knows. So I'm just going to skip down here. I think you're all familiar with the Brooklyn crime. Though Terry and Mittiger have been collaborating for some time already, they team up for a series of SOS articles for Gannett Westchester newspapers. So, this was at the time, this was pretty much a match made in heaven, because now you have the next byline, October 12th, and they're naming John Carr. Up until this point, they have not named him as being possibly involved. And in this series of bylines, John Carr is mentioned. Let's see, I do have a few things highlighted. I know I said I was going to stop after the last one, but I still have a few of you listening, so what the hey. Okay, new probe into possible involvement of John Carr. Search for Berkowitz Carr link. October 12th, 79. Again, these are all from Reporter Dispatch. Oh, this is important too. This article, Son of Sam investigation is reopened. Not only was Maury Terry Mittiger, but Jeff Neese from Minot Daily News. I can't wait to get into the Minot stuff. Hey, let me know in chat if y'all want to do Minot next. Okay, the New York City Police Department has quietly reopened its investigation into the Son of Sam. The new investigation began 2 years after David Berkowitz said he was a killer who worked alone, and only weeks after the Gannett Westchester newspapers demonstrated the probability he did not. Son of Sam, one person, perhaps more, killed 6 young people and wounded 7 others in a year-long reign of terror. Y'all know that. New York police, however, reopened the investigation in a reversal of the department's public posture that Berkowitz acted alone, because they now believe he may have had at least one accomplice. The latest investigation has taken detectives from the sidewalks of the Bronx, where at least one key figure in the original case has been interviewed anew, to the foothills of North Dakota, where local and New York City authorities have questioned friends of the late John Carr. Carr's father, Sam, was a neighbor of Berkowitz, who later called Sam Carr the master who ordered him to kill. Sam Carr lives with his family in a private home on Warburton. Y'all know that. Okay, this is important. Some of the results of the investigation and some of the questions being asked have been made available to these reporters by sources. Was John Carr an accomplice in the Son of Sam killings? Was John Carr involved with David Berkowitz and others in occult activities? Did John Carr commit suicide as originally believed, or was he murdered by other conspirators because of his knowledge of the Son of Sam killings? Let's see if there's anything else that I want to put in from this archive. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Not sure. Let's see. Minot, let's do it next. I was born in Minot in Government Hospital. Of course you were. 990 buddy, of course you were. Seashore Mary, let's see. Sure, not enough research done in Minot. Oh, there's a lot of research done in Minot. I just don't think people are sharing it. I've done a bunch, and I'd love to collaborate with others who've done a bunch, but I think that it's really important, whether you believe it or not. It doesn't matter what your stance is, okay? What's important is that you know the information, okay? That is what's important. So yeah, we'll consider that. That might be a hot show. Maybe we'll get some call-ins. All right. Yep. John had a lot of problems in Minot, for sure. Minot was a big deal for a minute, then it just went away. No, Ed, I'll tell you, the law enforcement in Minot globbed onto this. There's a lot. Here's where we're going to finish off today, because I just don't want to sit here reading. Oh, wait a minute. There might have been something important in this passage. Okay, there is. Let me read you this one passage, and then we're gonna hit. I'm gonna tease you guys with the Minot link, and then we'll go over it when I finish the bylines, or maybe next because it's part of the bylines. Okay. Over the last 6 weeks, the New York City Police Department has been in constant touch with North Dakota authorities who are aiding them in the investigation of new leads in the case. Authorities there have disclosed, and New York police have interviewed associates of the late John Carr in North Dakota. Key factors to the new inquiry are two pieces of information. One, Berkowitz and John Carr, who police did not believe knew each other, were acquainted months before Berkowitz was arrested as a mass murderer. And two, Carr was known to select associates as Wheaties, an alias of the killer. So I'm not going to go through that because I think y'all know that. But that's where we are now. The bylines now move us through by October 12th, 79 into implicating John Carr. Okay. Notice, I want to make something clear. Okay. Who hasn't been mentioned so far? Cops in Minot got starstruck working with NYPD. Why not Minot was their town motto. Oh, Patrick, and this is why you're my nutty buddy. I'm going to tease you guys now. I'm going to go into Minot. Let me change the screen. Let me take you off so y'all could see. Okay. Minot, why not? But this is how I research stuff, Patrick. Fun fact, why not Minot? In Minot, North Dakota, we don't wait for things to happen. We make them happen. Our hometown slogan, why not Minot, isn't just a question. It's the answer when others ask. Oh, we got the process. Due to the winter conditions, a phrase spread within the USAF, that's the U.S. Air Force Base, regarding why people would not wish to be stationed there. Why not Minot? Friesen's the reason in response. People who loved Minot Air Force Base and the surrounding area came up with the comeback. 41 keeps the riffraff out. So yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with the SOS case, guys. I just thought that was a cool little tidbit. So teasing you, we're not going through all this tonight because we're already almost on an hour and a half. So we cover excerpts. That's what I just read to you, that they're working with Minot law enforcement. Yep. And then we go through some information. This is the mascot. Minot, we like drugs. I don't know. I can't vouch for that. Okay, this is where it gets juicy, y'all. When we cover Minot, yep. Yes, Patrick. I love this. Why not Minot? Friesen's the reason. Love it. But when we come back to Minot, we're going to go into John Carr. Yeah. We're going to go into Terry Gardner. We're going to go into Phil Falcon. Yes. We're going to go into Noop. Okay. We're going to go into Jeff Neese. We're going to go into Jack Graham and his mysterious car accident. And then this is Slater. So this is the timeline. And this is a link on a link of Terry's stuff. Okay. Yeah, man, it reminds me of the Christmas Carol. There, when the wizard was evil, he turns nice at the end. But the wizard was eventually was initially evil, but that's who the mascot reminds me of. Let's see what Mr. Hudson, and I'm so happy to see you. Process wasn't what they portrayed themselves to be. You don't go on a talk show and say the things they said if you're really doing it. Hmm. Yeah. We will be getting into a little bit of process in Scientology, but I'm taking my time and going in chronological order with the cast of players. Oh, Geitzen, I forgot. He was in the corner. I didn't see him. He's interesting. Why aren't you guys seeing my mouse? Oh, I thought you'd see my mouse. Oh, there you go. There's my mouse. He's real interesting. He comes from a heavy military background, and he had a twin brother who died in, I believe, the Vietnam War, but we can go through that when we go through this slide. But on the timeline, this is a slide within a slide within a slide, and each of these where you see arrows, there is another slide. So it's slide and subslide and subslide. So that's a little teaser of this. I got a little interest. We'll see. Yeah, there's Scary Guy. It's the same Christmas Carol words. My name is Heat Miser. Whatever I touch starts to melt in my clutch. I'm too much. I don't think this guy sings, but he's like the cousin of Heat or the brother of Heat Miser. He's the freezing guy. But anyway, all right, so that's your teaser on the Minot. I'm going to jump back to just give you a teaser of the rest of the byline slides. Really good listening to you. Ed, hang on. We're not taking off yet. Hang on. Don't go anywhere. Really good seeing you. I haven't seen you in decades. All right. We're going to share this tab again. So there's the link, the Minot link. We go back here. There's a reel where I cover some of the material on here, but if there's a reel, that means it's already on YouTube. Do more, Rosie. Steve, I will go live more. My timing, obviously, what time is it? It's like 10:18. My schedule sucks, but yeah, listen, I will do lives. I just need people, who want to listen to my shit. If you want to hear me, I'll go on. Okay. So I'm just going to summarize what's left. That we're going to have to kind of come back to these. October 1679, Wheaties Carr feared for his life. And what I have highlighted here, John Carr, who authorities in New York and North Dakota now think may have possibly been involved in the 44 caliber killings that left 6 dead and 7 wounded in 76 and 77, made the statement about the electric chair just days before his death in Minot, North Dakota. In February 78, after abruptly returning there from Yonkers, North Dakota police say. So there's a lot going on. They were coming back and forth to NYPD. North Dakota jumped on it. Here's another little. North Dakota authorities said their investigation has shown that John Carr was a devil worshiper who participated in satanic rites. The Son of Sam letter contained numerous occult references police have established. In addition, a number of German Shepherd dogs were found slain in Berkowitz's neighborhood. ... We don't need to go into that again, but we're going to move down. And this is probably where we will start winding down. So, October 18th, 1979, it's officially reported Queens DA joins the new Sam probe. Queens District Attorney John Santucci steps into the investigation. And I did a reel on this already. Yeah. So I'm going to have to do a lot of linking. I hope that you guys will go on my community tab. If you don't know what that means, you go to my channel and at the end it says posts and you could look at my tabs and I'll just put a whole mess of stuff there for you guys. Okay. Just read this real quick. Santucci stepped into the case. The spokesman said to expand the previously secret limited investigation that was begun by the New York City Police Department in early August, as Gannett Westchester newspapers reported last week. Police began probing the Son of Sam killings anew because they no longer are certain David Berkowitz acted alone in the murder spree that left 6 dead and 7 wounded. The new investigation was launched 2 years after Berkowitz said he was a killer who acted alone, and only 2 weeks after the Gannett Westchester newspapers demonstrated the probability that he did not. So yeah, we're taking credit there. We're taking a lot of credit. So just so that we could put this into context, those of you that are familiar with the People site and all the interviews that the Queens DA did, that was at or around this time, because now they're telling you they've reopened the case. They've heard Maury Terry's information. They've been in contact with the Minot law enforcement agencies, and apparently Santucci was convinced enough that there was enough information to reopen the case. And of course, we heard in the last documentary, Confessions of a Killer, I think that was the name. I forgot already. But the one with Jack Jones, and the one Manny Grossman doesn't talk about. We remember Borelli saying that, or I don't know if it was in that one. It could have been one of the other ones. My nutty buddy. Thank you, darling. Thank you. That Santucci, wanted a little bit more fluff with the public, that he needed his number. He needed, more public support. And this is Borelli speaking, not me. That is all bullshit. I think those was his exact words. It's all bullshit. Why didn't they reopen the kit? Why are they waiting now? But so that's that. So, and that was his opinion. Some of you may share that opinion. Some of you may not. But yeah, let's see. Book club. Terry is probably citing Chinotti's visit, which was not sanctioned by the NYPD. Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about Chinotti too. Okay, before I sign off with you guys, we got one more thing to look at. And this is your main Maury Terry slide. Let's go ahead and change. There we go. Let's come back to here. So as you can see, there's slides and slides and slides and slides. There's so much information. But if, all I need is an audience. You guys want to hear it? Well, I can talk, that's for sure. So this was the link that we were just in, that we're going to come back and summarize, because it does go through to then Arliss Perry. Yeah, so I want people to see that. Santucci needed to get reelected. Yeah, well, then you and Borelli agree, book club. Okay. We're eventually going to get in the early investigation of Maury Terry, this series. We're eventually going to summarize some of his correspondence with Berkowitz. This is all before, this is pre Ultimate Evil, okay? Because a lot of people, they're like, when did John Carr get named? When did Michael Carr get named? And he's the one I was talking about before. And in none of this have you heard Michael Carr. And I've got some theories, but I got to save that for special. I got to save that for its own episode. So we can, I don't know how much I'm going to talk about the Ultimate Evil. I was more interested in talking about the filling in some gaps of the early investigation. So here you can see we've done some diving into the OTO. This is just this is the newer edition of the Ultimate Evil that had some things that the original did not. So we included that. Then we go through some of the shows and the influence that it had on Maury's case. And this is what I wanted to show people. We are eventually going to get into information, how these characters came into. I'm not telling anybody what to think. I'm not telling you what I think, but how did these characters get introduced into Maury's story? That's the main thing. That's the purpose of this series. We're going to talk some about Arliss Perry. We're going to talk about Andrew DePay. We're going to talk about Richie Sparrazza. We're going to talk about Alex Verone. We're going to talk about John Paul Ranieri. We're going to talk about Billy the Artist. We're going to talk about Roy Radin. We're going to go on and on and on. We're also going to go real deep. So if you guys want Minot, that's eventually going to come, maybe next, maybe not. But this is important. I need to talk to you guys about this. We need to talk about Gilroy. We need to talk about Mittiger and their influence. We need to talk more about D Channel, because people seem to think there's not enough, a lot out there on D Channel. There's a lot out there on D. I found it. Nessa. We need to talk about, you've all heard so much about, I've done so much on Tommy Zano. We'll cover it briefly, but we had to talk about this guy. We need to talk about Lipsig. We need to talk about Basteri, and we need to talk about Kevin Murphy. We need to talk about Chinotti. We could talk, I think we're not going to go too deep into Santucci, but we will go, definitely we'll go a little bit into him. Is there anything else on the main slide that's of interest? We'll go through more of that after the fact, but yeah, this is just the start. All these arrows are shows and parts of shows. So you all just let me know. And for those of you that participated tonight, I thank you so, so much. You have no idea. It makes me happy. There's nothing worse than, and I know I picked a shit time because I forgot all about the time change. So I apologize for that. I'm sorry. Let's do this. We're going to be done with that for now, okay? Yeah, Chinotti. I got to tell you, and I'm not embarrassed to say, you got to see his rook pick, man. And I'm talking to the ladies, and for any of the guys that might care. Oh my goodness. Anyway, not important, not related to Son of Sam, but yeah. Look on my wall for that, ladies. But so we got it. We got so much information. I just want to know that people want to talk about it, because as you guys know, I don't do the drama here, and I get it. I know it gets boring when you're too kind of fact based and that kind of thing. But listen, I could do it in bite sized chunks, which is how I usually like to do it. Even though tonight we've been going, I don't know, we've been going for quite a while. So yeah, I'm gonna let you guys get to sleep, but I'll give you a second or two in case you want to say anything else into the chat. I hope my sound was good. I still have some cold coffee here. Anything else, guys? Minot, the cast of characters. We got a lot. And I did this because I just felt that I needed to give all of the Maury files the same amount of attention and research that I did the police reports, the interrogations, all that other stuff. And boy, did I fill in a lot of puzzle pieces for myself. I hope that you all enjoy this. So we got a comment here from my friend Ed. My biggest memory of Terry was Joe Coffey calling into every show he went on. My mom loved Coffey. Yes, we have that. We have one of those clips where he calls in and basically calls him a bullshit artist. And Terry's like, is this Joe Coffey? Man, those two didn't like each other. They didn't like each other. All right. You are welcome, Steve. Thank you for joining us. Nutty Buddy, thank you. Sound was great. Okay, I wasn't screaming. Mary, you're always a sweetheart. Thank you so much. Don't forget, guys, you got to remind me when we're done with this segment and I'm done with those bylines, I want to be able to share them with you. I think if you read them through yourself, there's a lot of little nuggets in there. Is it all true? No, but there's a lot to be gleaned from there. So, all right, guys, I guess I'm going to let you go because I could probably go on for another hour yapping. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And until the next one, maybe, why not, Minot? I don't know. Maybe we'll finish up the bylines and then hit Minot because there's a lot of goodies there. All right, guys. Peace. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful night and enjoy your week.